Let me ask you this. So Will Bolt has coached 5 seasons now. 2020, they only got 15 games in, but this team has won a third of the Big Ten titles that have been handed out over that time. They've made 3 regionals. I thought they had a decent enough case in 2023, and that ends up being one that they missed. So 1-3 on the line on a fourth, and then just the one losing season in 2022. Like, for this program going forward, like, how far away or how close are they to not even hosting a regional? Because you look at the super regionals and there are 7 unseeded teams that advanced
Right.
into the super regional round. There will be an unseeded team in Omaha because of the way the bracket laid out, and you've got Murray State taking on Duke, both of those unseeded teams, and you've got Louisville and Miami. Those are power conference teams. Arizona, but you've also got a UTSA who advanced in there. The top 2 national seeds went down this past weekend. So when you're looking at Nebraska and you look at, hey, it's working for these teams. Why is it working for these teams and the leagues that they play in and the resources Nebraska has compared to the resources they have, the resources Big Ten programs in general have, even if baseball is lower on the spending priority than some of the other sports compared to what the ACC does or the SEC does or even the Big 12. Like, what's that thing that's missing for Nebraska? Is it having a deeper bullpen? Is it having more guys that can hit 95 on the radar gun? Is it having you look at some, like we saw last year when Nebraska was playing Florida, it seemed like every guy was cookie cutter. They were all 6'6", 240. It's just up and down the lineup. What is that thing, if there is one, that's missing for Nebraska from that step that hasn't happened in 20 years?
I think it's, to me, because I come from a thought of strong and deep pitching is going to take you very, very far. Rotational elite arms for sure. And I think Ty Horn is there. I think what you got between Jackson Brockett and Will Walsh was guys that utilized their stuff really good, but didn't have explosive fastballs. And look, it's not all about the velocity. You can have guys that throw 96, 97 miles an hour, but if they have no movement and they're relying heavily on that, they become predictable. They haven't developed that complementary breaking ball or change up well enough, then you're going to get hit just the same as anybody throwing 86, 87. But I think when you do have those types of players that I'll use the Ty Horn example of a guy that as he continued to find success in the second half of the year, you would watch him maybe in the third and the fourth inning, all of a sudden that breaking ball gained more depth. It became more devastating because then that fastball, even at 93 or 94, would come by and you'd have no shot catching up to it. So guys that have that type of stuff that can bring you a 93, 94 plus fastball, but are also coming right back with an explosive slider or a changeup that's just dropping off the table. You know, those types of guys. Mason McConaughey had all of that. And, we don't know what's going to happen with Mason because of that injury and his draft stock and everything. I mean, there is a decision there. I don't think Nebraska is necessarily counting on him coming back, but you never know. And I know they love him, and I know he loves this program. But having those types of arms, if you're rolling out 3 guys, this is the one thing that I looked at Oklahoma and I was really impressed with. Every guy that they ran out there was 95 plus. And I mean, we saw Crossland, the guy that his numbers weren't great. Now, mind you, he's pitching in the SEC, but he was in control of that game. And yeah, sure, it's easy to throw a lot of strikes and challenge hitters when you have the type of cushion that he had, but his stuff was really good. They threw a freshman at the end of that game against North Carolina the previous night, and that kid was throwing 95, 96 miles an hour as well. So I think when you do have some of those power arms, because look, the way we are in college baseball is, and you brought up UTSA, perfect example. You're watching their guy throw 97. You know, those arms are out there, but it's the ones, and this is what I love that Nebraska has, is you got Rob Childress. Give Rob Childress just even some raw ability, a kid with raw ability. In 2 years, Rob will have that guy refined and have that guy effective. So I think it starts there. I think you want to see more of those Mason McConaughey types I'm not trying to make it sound like they're easy to find, but they're out there. And if they're developed by Rob Childress, I'll put my money on that all day. I think it does start there, because for the guys that are maybe on the cusp of being into that rotation, okay, well, then they become high leverage bullpen guys. Drew Christo's a great example. There's a guy that was a high leverage bullpen arm in a starter's body. And you knew if you had to have an emergency start that 2-5 could pick the ball up and he could probably have a pretty solid outcome. So that's why I think when you can get those elite arms, they're developed under one of the best pitching coaches in college baseball, whether they factor into your Friday through Sunday or you have a spillover into the bullpen and you build that and you stockpile that, to me, you become a very tough team to beat. Even if and the reason I say that is so important is you're going to see a lot more slumping collectively in the batter's box than you're going to see on the mound. There might be a couple of guys on the mound that all of a sudden are having a tough time finding the strike zone, but that doesn't typically last as long or is got that long-term effect, or that, I guess, that trickle-down effect as much as it can in the batter's box when you have a collective slump like Nebraska did. I'm not trying to say Nebraska's fine offensively and, oh yeah, you're good there. You want to see some dudes that are going to be able to give you the 10 plus home runs, the 50 plus, 60 plus RBI type guys, the guys that are slugging over 550 or 600. You want those guys because that lengthens your lineup. And I think Nebraska started to show a little bit of that there towards the end, where 1 through 9, they were tough, but now you want some of those guys, maybe 2 through 5, that are just punishing the ball, like the Bryce Matthews and Max Anderson type guys that you have. Again, I know
over 100 home runs in a season team,
right? I'm making it sound like, oh, you just need those guys and you're fine. Like they're living next door to you or something right now. But again, I just think I still put that heavy emphasis back on having those electric arms under the tutelage of Rob Childress. I think puts this program from what is a competitive, always on everyone's radar type of team to a team that you want nothing to do with. A team like, I'll give Iowa credit from this standpoint too. They have been able to find a bona fide Friday, Saturday guy almost every year Rick Heller's been there. They've had guys that have come into that program that are just devastating on the mound. And when you can get that type of tone setter and then followed up with another guy that is extremely tough to get off the mound there, 4 or 5 runs, you're just not putting that much pressure on your offense, especially in a moment that maybe they're struggling a little bit, because you can count on those guys on the mound. I think Nebraska's close to there. Let's just see more of those guys.
And it's not that Nebraska hasn't had those guys. Obviously, Mason McConaughey is what you were expecting coming into this year. But you had Brett Sears. You had the Big Ten Pitcher of the Year a year ago. You can go back under Will Bolt. You had Cade Povich. You had Spencer Schwellenbach, and obviously he was a
and look what those seasons led to.
Yes,
in 21, Nebraska was in the regional conversation until Rutgers came into town, but they were a big part of the regional host conversation. Last year, if Nebraska wins a couple more midweeks, they're in the regional host conversation. So you see the connection there. You mentioned 2 bona fide aces, and then this year, Mason McConaughey, we don't get to see him go past Sam Houston, 3rd week of the season. Again, not trying to say Nebraska all of a sudden in the regional host, but there's that connection of when you've got big-time arms, big-time guys, what it does to the rest of your staff and what it can do in series that, unfortunately, Nebraska wasn't winning in March.
And that's where I'm at when you look at this team and this program on the what's missing. To me, it's the second guy. So coming into this year, you were expecting to have Mason McConaughey, but who is Mason McConaughey light? Who is that 1A, 1B instead of here's your number 1 and then here's your number 2? Like that's the part that Nebraska, if they can ever get that, like last year, if you have Brett Sears and then you have an immediate second ace, not somebody who, I know Brockett threw a no-hitter. I know that. And you saw what guys were able to do with amazing performances in the Big Ten tournament and a lot of one-off or kind of hit and miss on success. But that one guy that's just, they're expected to be a dude every single night out. A little bit of what you saw in the last 2 appearances from Ty Horn.
Yeah.
Like, how can you get that type of consistency with that elite second arm? To me, that's the part that's been missing, in that Nebraska has had that ace. And in those seasons, Nebraska has been in a really good position where that ace has been healthy for the for the bulk of the season. We didn't get that with Mason this year.